What's up? Hello, folks. It's Lord of O.R.D. Got a special guest. Gonna get a chance to finally hang out with a gentleman. He goes by many names. We'll call him Haliel. If I pronounce it right, Magi. He'll correct the name. Anyways, he's high octane. He knows quite a bit about what he knows. He's half my age, and I'm happy to have someone like him to join me in my world. To those that have joined, Stephanie Barrett, thank you, Father Fat Snacks, John P. Ventures, and everybody else that joins. And so, this gentleman has been educated. He's got some interesting education, and if you could join us, Magi, otherwise known as Homestead Atheist, and many other names. What's up, bro? He dropped off again. He is he'll get him back up here. He is, there he is.
Did it work?
You're back now, bro. What's up?
All right, sweet. Sorry about that.
How do I say that again? So I keep on butchering people's names.
Oh, so it's a Haliel, Magi.
Haliel.
Yeah. It means light bearer.
Light bearer, light bringer.
Yep.
I'm the beloved one.
I've been called Sol Invictus, Haliel Magi, the Homestead Atheist, High Magi Spaz. I go by many names, as you said. I'm 32, going on 33 years old. I've dedicated about 16 years to university and a total of 20 years as a practicing Magi. And I am more than honored to be here to answer these questions. I'm super excited. Thank you.
Yeah, well, the first question I have is, we're going to try this, make a tradition, is your top 5 books, bro. Just in no particular order.
So my top 5 books would be The Designing the Mind, Principles of Psychostructure. For me, it was an amazing psychological book that helped not only teach me how to interpret texts, but also to interpret and design how I wish to view the universe. Quite literally designing the mind like you would a computer. The next one actually would have been the Kabbalah Unveiled. Now, even though I've studied, much older texts and the texts that, came to demonstrate Kabbalah, for me, it was an amazing book that to this day is easy to just pull forward, right? And apply it to everything that you learn. The next one would probably be the collection of the Sephirs. And that's usually what I have. I don't really have distinguished books, more so collections. So the Enuma Elish, an Epic of Gilgamesh, the Sephirs, and last but not least would probably be, this last one's kind of hard, right? Because I love literature.
Right. I got 3 so far.
It would be 4. It would be the Kobel or Kabbalah, right, the collection of Sephirs,
right,
the Designing Mind, Principles of Psychostructure,
right,
the Kabbalah Unveiled, which I guess you could include Kabbalah as well. So then I would just go to like the writings of Homer.
Okay.
And Socrates.
Socrates, okay.
I wish I could give more just book titles, but I love literature as a whole, so it's really hard for me to choose.
All right, so you're demonstrating that you're a highly educated man. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So I appreciate it too. I would not claim that I am one of those. So I appreciate it myself. So so the next thing is, tell us a little about you, your educational background.
Yeah, absolutely. So before I got into college and university, in my high school years, I got my certification in computer programming, web design, and a year of culinary arts. I was heavy into the study of astrology, astronomy, cosmology, history, and just science as a whole. And then as I got into college, some doors were closed while other ones opened. And so after about 2.5, 3 years of studying cosmology, astronomy, and physics, I gravitated more towards psychology, theology, and evolution. And so that's kind of how it got me here today. So I started, at a career tech center alongside high school. Then I started at a local community college, MCC, for about 2.5 years, and then upgraded to Universal EDU, which connected me with the University of London and Davenport.
So that's interesting. So, and you said, we talked a little bit because I spent a few years myself in London, and that you spent a little bit of time in London yourself, huh?
Yeah, a couple months.
London is a fascinating place. At least it was 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And each borough had its own ethnic group.
Yep.
So it was, I didn't think it was going to happen the way it happened, but I experienced the world at all places in London. So very cosmopolitan for sure. What's the next question? Oh yeah, the next question I wanted to bring, I brought this up. What losses, how many lives did you lose in order to get to the point that you decided to get into such a eclectic group of learning, is particularly theology? Usually people theology have some kind of losses. And what I mean by that is they maybe grew up a Catholic or whatever, then discovered the faults and failings of that, and then they join another cult, and then they finally say, maybe I should go into theology. Did you have some experience?
Yeah, but mine was a little different. It wasn't more so that I had to keep discovering falses. From the ages of 5 until 13, I was raised from a Scientologist stepfather and a Roman Catholic mother. And so by the time I was 13, because they were practitioners also of certain crafts, I was already exposed to a lot of what we call occult and esoteric knowledge. So for me, it was more so by the time I was 13, I kind of just became a deist. So I was naturally just available for knowledge, and I practiced what I learned. So it wasn't just I studied it, I practiced it. If it didn't work, I threw it away. If it did work, I kept it.
What did you find that worked?
Magic, for sure, especially ancient magic. It's what gives us things like cell phones, right? It's responsible for the pharmaceutical era. It's what's responsible for our mathematics, geometry, understanding of astronomy, the difference between the passings of seasons, both on a earthly calendar-based year and a celestial calendar-based year, and changes in our celestial orbital lifespan, that our ancient ancestors knew and practiced. So it wasn't something like we see in Hollywood, right, with like Harry Potter and things of the like. Not to dish on those amazing fantasies, but there's a difference between just the metaphysic, right, and the application of, for example, shamanism and magic. Magic at its core is nothing more than the manipulation of the laws and principalities of our universe, of our reality, to transform, initiate, and then manifest what it is we metaphysically consciously desire from the mundane into something that is now paranormal from the natural flow of our universe. For example, utilizing things like gold, silver, titanium, magnets, crystals. You throw them all together with some electricity in a specific design and coded fashion, and we have a cell phone, right?
Right.
That's the practice of magic. Now it can be pharmaceutical, herbal, right? It can be spicy psychology, if you will, word manipulation, especially for placebo effects, so on and so forth. But magic as a whole is just the manipulation of the laws around us to manifest and create what we so desire.
I wish my new acquaintance and friend, Burn Eye, Third Eye, the science guy, to join us. You'd enjoy this. He's into this alchemy stuff, and he's really into it. So anyways, let's get into this. So thank you for letting us know about you. And now this
Appreciate
whole
it.
idea on the fly. I mean, you and I really don't know each other. I know more about you than you know about me. That's for sure. And
Yeah.
that's thanks to TikTok and thanks to our fellow characters and friends like Eddie.
Yep.
That's the reason why I know you. But I've been busy doing my thing. You've been busy doing your thing. So here we are colliding with each other. And we said, hey, why don't you teach us about shamanism?
Yeah.
What is shamanism?
So, at its most basic form, shamanism is the practice of one communing with nature at a animalistic or animistic spiritual level. Secondary, it is to be the provider of guidance, divination, healing, and teaching education. Throughout history, what we find is the position of the shaman was not necessarily to be the leader, but more so the guide, right? They were seen as the ones most in tune with nature. They could commune with the animals and the trees. They could foresee seasons of prosperity and calamity. They utilized and understood herbology at a much deeper level. They were the creators of things like potions and tonics. They were guides for traveling what we call the astral realm, usually specifically utilizing things like non-endogenous DMT, psilocybin, MDMA, herbs and fungi with things like ergot, lotus, and I could keep going on with the list. But as a shaman, our usual job is to be a guide, a teacher, a healer, and most of all, one who is basically the bridge between the mundane and the spiritual, if you will.
Right. The Fortean part of our lives, to say the least. You like Charles Fort, by chance?
I've listened to a couple of their works, I believe. It's hard for me to pinpoint because it's just how many people
Charles
I work
Fort. He's a fascinating writer. Anybody gets a chance to explore his writings. He was around 100 years ago, and he wrote a book called The Book of the Damned. And The Book of the Damned is a fantastic book, and it's not what people think. Once you start reading it, you realize it has nothing to do with religion. It has everything to do with the fact that our eyes are awoken, and you become one of the damned.
Yeah, you
What
become
I mean by that is
reality.
Is that the rest of the world cannot accept you and be part of you. They can't accept you part of their lives. So The Book of the Damned. So.
Yep, you step outside the system.
So you talked about things about shamanism, about animalism, healing, being a guide, a teacher. They always talk about shamanism that you're supposed to have. You shouldn't do it by yourself. You should have a fellow shaman work beside, kind of work with each other, right, in your own healing and teaching and guiding. So
we absolutely are supposed to. So like we can be individual and leading. So for example, if I have 1 to 3 or 5 people who come to have a enlightenment experience, right, or they wish to do shadow work specifically, and they wish to utilize things like DMT, ergot, LSD, just all these things, right? I personally can do a certain amount of people and still lead them to a certain degree. However, when it comes to healing, when it comes to my own healing, things the like, it is highly encouraged to work with multiple shaman at once, especially if we're dealing with a patient that has a lot of what we'll call spiritual sickness. Now, I know like the scientists and the atheists have a hard time understanding what I mean by this. But when we say spiritual sickness, in most actions, we're talking about mental trauma that leads to physical effects. So depression that can lead to suicidal thoughts, or anxiety and PTSD that can lead to things like seizures, panic attacks, and even heart attacks, or just sickness in the bowels, things the like. So one, just going to one, you never want to go to just one anyways, because it's kind of like a doctor, right? You don't go to just one doctor or one specialist to find out if indeed something is specifically that. So it is always highly encouraged that just like you would doctors, we're more so the spiritual doctors. We're the ones who are here for the emotional. Many of us in modern days are psychiatrists, if that helps explain it.
Right. Absolutely. If it's all right with you too, is it all right if I invite others if they so just desire to join us?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're the one hosting, and I'm honored just to be interviewed.
Right. So we plan on keeping you just the focus here. But anybody who's interested and has any questions for our friend here, and please, the Magi, hey, come join us and ask questions and add to it. So I led, and there, if you look at there from a link, StreamYard, in which you can join us. And yeah, JT, join us, man. You're a future Magi yourself, a future shaman. You're almost there, bro. Join us. So saying that, one of the questions, what was I going to ask? I derailed myself. Was atheists. If you go by the name
Homestead Atheist.
That's the homestead. But by the way, it turns out he only lives about 4 hours away from me, just north, and basically my backyard, man. And didn't know that. So he's in Michigan, in all places. Pretty cool. So yeah, atheists. So what does that mean to you? I mean, as far as you and your journey, because I know you brought that up and we've talked a little bit. And we're watching that video and the stuff about the ancient alien carvings and all that stuff, right? The stuff they're digging up, so, allegedly out of Mexico, right? And you said, I'm an atheist, right? And I'm like, I don't care. But what does it mean to you? You know what I mean?
So I take the word quite literally by its definition. It's an individual that lacks the belief in God, right? I don't believe in anything that I would venerate, worship, or perceive as a god. Especially, as a Magi, and you get into the stage of also becoming a shaman, or witch doctor, it goes by many names. You stop seeing things as gods or devils, if you will, or anything like that. Though that, like I said, I study with the paranormal, I utilize magic, especially I apply the science in everything that I do. I don't venerate or see anything as a god. Now, are there entities or frequencies that the average, smo doesn't perceive? Absolutely. And we can prove this because, for example, with studies biologically, your body only perceives around 0.083% of the electromagnetic spectrum alone, which means you don't perceive 99% of what is around you.
Isn't it amazing? And then on top of that, you think of the avatar that we walk in, the avatar, and that brain, that thing that houses the essence of who we are. They say that we barely use 5% of it, maybe someone like
you use all of it, but you only use its capacity at around 11 to 13%. And to top it off, your brain isn't the only mind within your avatar.
And it just brings up the thought of the Daymers and how did we get stuck here? Anyways, but I like that you brought up the spiritual realm, and that's one of the things that I've been doing. That's the reason why I call myself the digital shaman, is I've been filming this stuff in the trees, and they're not pareidolia. And I encourage anybody to go back into my list there. You'll find it in the imagery for the stuff that I'm filming, and you'll see clearly that he's not kidding. We're dealing with entities and beings, spirits, whatever you want to call them. They're all around us that we don't see. And now that with this digital age and the cameras we have, it's broadened our field of view or lenses to see things pierce a little bit deeper into the darkness. And I encourage everyone else to do the same thing. You'll find out it is true. Just have to have a halfway decent camera and actually start aiming it into the trees and up in the air. Spend some time doing it. I encourage you. So I like that. So because I know this is a problem that has been mine as part of my journey, a stumbling, if you will, a block that I had to, or a hurdle that I had to jump over. That was this whole thing about God, what that all means, right? So this is the thing. You can still be quote unquote an atheist or an agnostic, and still have an understanding that there are parallel universes running alongside of us. There's things around us that we can't see. And physics and science are demonstrating that. There's, plasma science and all that, and discovering this thing called sentient plasma. There's this fact that it has a life force of its own.
Yep.
And there's another thing
too. We found in the 1970s.
The physicists talk about this thing, and it's called the super force. I don't know if you heard of that generic term.
Yep.
Basically, this idea that
they came out with it in 2004.
Okay. What do you think about that?
I mean, it's absolutely correct to the degree that it's a piece of the puzzle. It's so as a shaman, especially when you do the trips with fellow shaman, right? That's when shit gets real fun. Because we're all practitioners. So when we do it, we all just kind of plug in and go. When you look at the third dimension, you have to kind of look at it like a crystal, right? And the third and the fourth and fifth dimension are kind of like dualistic modalities that constrict the third dimension into a prismatic reflection, if you will. So everything that happens in this prismatic dimensional array is the bouncing and refraction of light, of energy, right? And so what we see as physicality is more so just what physics and quantum physics would call singularity groupings. Mm-hmm. So entanglements that entangle together. And they operate and entangle because they are within a specific frequency or wave, if you will. Certain waves can interact with each other. Certain waves can't. Some just, completely bypassed each other with zero interaction. And this is how you see it as a shaman, how you see it as a high practitioner of magic. You see the universe kind of like through like a kaleidoscope, if you will. You can both put together and separate simply by looking at things. Mostly due because you're firing both between the left and right side of your brain simultaneously, purposely. And so when we view the universe, you kind of have to look at it as it's fractional, it's geometrical, it's crystalline, we are the rainbow from which the light shines, hits the crystal, and then beams out, if that makes sense. So when we talk about like the super source, right? The super source is pretty much dedicated to the laser before it hits the crystal and spreads.
That's a great way. I never heard it that way. That's great. I like that.
Yeah. I'm sorry it took me a minute to explain it, but you kind of have to know all the pieces.
As time goes on, you're going to be talking a hell of a lot more than me. So I'm hoping at least. I like that. Well, I just lost my train of thought there. There's so many things to think about there. We could just talk about.
Yeah, there is. That's another thing I could recommend. Everyone in the chat, because I can't see who's watching on the YouTube. I can't really see anything else here because I'm using my phone. But if you go to YouTube and look up, say, for example, Randall Carlson, The Hidden Mathematics, always take everything from every physician and shaman and practitioner with a grain of salt, including me. Don't just take my word for it. Do the research, always. But Randall Carlson, I think, does an amazing job, especially in this video of hidden mathematics and geometry, to give you a good understanding of the polarity of reality.
This is Sasquatch Confession asks, is the crystal the universe?
Yes. So in that analogy, yes, our universe in which we operate in. Now, with several physicists that I've talked to, such as Angry Scientist, or he goes by God Killer, Justin Hill, he and I go back and forth on the idea on whether or not the fifth dimension is applied, right? And if it is, whether or not it's its own technical array, or if it's a dualistic modality alongside the fourth, being space-time. So when we perceive our universe through the third dimension, and we as a consciousness kind of operate at a 3.5, it's crystalline. It's very geometrical. And the way that the laws of physics, both at the quantum and, the micro to the macro chasm, as above, so below in these laws. Now, depending on what extreme you're at will depend on how technically those laws are bent to a degree, but it's still what gives us our universal constants, such as the speed of light, gravitational pull, temporal applicable mechanics per time Planck, S over T2, so on and so forth. So when we look at the universe, yes, I'm using the analogy as quite literally a crystal, and imagine you shine a flashlight through it, right? And when that flashlight, that single white light photon, hits this prismatic and then splits, that split is the motion of through time and space, which gives reality. So fourth dimension times space is the physical crystalline, while the fifth dimension is the constant interchangeability, the liquid state of this prismatic. So as you would have the masculine, time and space, the feminine is the fluidity of chaos. So where the prismatic is where we perceive locked in order, so locked in frequencies that entangle with each other.
He dropped off. He dropped off again. Man, he was on a roll too, man. He's putting me in a state. There he is again. All right.
Am I back in? This happens every time, man. I told you.
Hi, man. Listen, you're talking to a guy that's heavily censored, man. I fell on my sword in 2020-21 to try to warn people about what's going on worldwide. And they took my channel. I used to have thousands of subs for whatever it's worth. It's more of an
I did too.
than anything. And since then, I just can't. They will refuse to allow me to have any traction. So
I have video of the FBI coming to my house on one of my YouTubes.
What's that?
I literally have video of the FBI coming to my house on one of my YouTubes.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, that's a story in itself. Oh my gosh. I got to ask, why?
So I was accused of leading a quote unquote death cult, apparently.
Oh, well, were you? I mean, there are out there. I mean,
not that I know of. And if I did, I'd be the worst cult leader in existence. The number one thing I require of anyone who works with me is to do the research. Always fact check me. So if I would be the worst cult leader in existence.
Right. You don't sound like the dude to be that way, man. So I don't see that happening. Anyways, you wouldn't be talking to us right now. So,
right. I would be keeping the knowledge as a cult instead of giving it out for free.
My son's mother tried to take my son away from me because of my journey and my studies, right? And based on false allegations of me being part of a death cult.
Yeah.
Seriously. And by the way, when we went to court, she was severely chastened by the judge, and it lasted less than a half an hour. And then we had the lawyers got together and told her if she pursued this any further, all she was going to achieve was loss of a lot of money. That changed her attitude real fast.
Yeah.
See, so, but I think it different levels, different, depending on who we are, is what we experience. I mean, I've had the dudes in the khaki pants and the black shirts run through my garbage, man. Yeah. I'm like, you got to be kidding. I mean, what the hell am I doing? So I think this, when you get too close to something that's a threat to the matrix, if you will,
it tries to eat you alive.
Yeah, they do. They don't want to. Just for some reason, they don't. Well, I know why it is, but and I think this is one of the reasons why I want to talk to you about shamanism, because I do believe that shamanism is a key to setting the individual free from the matrix that we're in.
Yeah. Well, it kind of is, right? Like, and again, when it comes to shamanism, it's not. Many of us are shamans because we're healers. You know, we care about the emotional and the mental state of others. We're able to experience things like empathy, compassion, love. But it does need to be said that shaman isn't just love and light.
No,
Most of our work is in the dark. No joke. Our job is to quite literally dig out all the gunk. We're the spiritual janitors, if you will, right? And so there are also times. Yeah, it does.
I spent a lot of time in the darkness, and I was like, geez, this never seems to end. Please continue.
Yeah, it never does that, actually. It's a never-ending battle, if you will. We do try to aim as more balanced when we can stay in control. But also being a shaman who practices the old ways as opposed to a more modern variant. And I do want to make sure that there is a distinction understood between what we call traditional practitioners, such as traditional Magi, traditional Druids, O.R.D, Haliel, shamans, so on and so forth, and the more new aged applications, right? For the original practitioners, such as myself, we are far more focused on what is natural as opposed to what is synthetic. We try to strive more so to, when we work with and guide people through their darkness, we embody it with them. So it's kind of the idea that not only are we, guiding you through, for example, a psychological trip, we're explaining the imagery that your brain is bringing forth to these dreams during these dream states, or shadow work, like the interpretation of dreams, forms of divination within foresight of your own life, or of your past. We have to also kind of take it onto ourselves. We have to not just be empathetic and sympathetic, but we have to fully embody it, which is why a traditional shaman will spend 3 days to a couple weeks, even 2 months, with a single individual to truly embody what it is that they are suffering, what it is that they are fighting with, what is their goal and passion in life, to help them achieve it. So with that said, we also do dabble in the baneful. We do bump back against the things that you would say go bump in the darkness or night. And because of that, just like every other form of practicing, if one is not ready to take accountability of one's usage, it is very easy to bring yourself to one of the extremes of these polarities, being, oh, I'm a shaman that only focuses on shadow work and love and light and daisies. And then you can have the hard ass who's like, yo, I'm gonna, burn the world and I'm gonna enjoy it. I'm going to use my manipulative cognitive abilities to consistently.
Both extremes suck, don't they? I mean, it's like
they do.
Worst type of person to be with.
And on the magic side, though, this also affects you physically and magically. For shamans, witch doctors, things of the like, that go too far over to the dark end and say, for example, focus more so on transmutation and animism. That's how we get things like wendigos and skinwalkers. When you go more toward,
I filmed a wendigo last fall. I got a great image of it too. Maybe we'll share it later on if you're interested. Seriously, you can ask JT if he's still here. I got a great image of it. So actually, yeah, go on.
But And then it's also on the other side. You will get people who were later venerated like Buddha, the Yeshua Barbalos, Thoth, Hermaeus Trismegistus, Apollonius of Tyana, things of the like, who become, and I'm just going to use like a Christian usage because it's very understood and common. Great men of renown, if you will.
Yeah, the true great men of renown, not the real giants.
Right.
Fascinating how they missed that point.
Yeah.
And again, if you don't understand shamanism and magic, you'll miss the point. That's what I discovered. So.
Exactly. And then you've got practitioners like me who ride the middle. I love chaos, and I happily enjoy seeing how things choose to play out, if you will. But I do try to encourage life more than I destroy life. And I have tried to gain myself to be more towards only using the baneful when baneful is the only choice I have.
So this word baneful, let's define that for us, will you?
So baneful is destructive for destructive sake.
Okay.
You can have destruction, for example, there's two types of destruction magic. You have destruction for the sake of life, and you have destruction for the sake of death, for the end of things. Or you could have it for the opening of rebirth. So it's the same of baneful and non-baneful. Non-baneful usually respects consent above all things. When utilizing magic, especially transference magic, it always comes at a request. Hence why with non-baneful magic, there's usually not much of a quote-unquote price to pay because all forces involved are in agreement, right? They're harmonized and synchronized. Baneful, on the other hand, is kind of like the dark side of the force, right? It's not necessarily evil, but it usually is used in what we define as evil because it's destructive for destructive sake and for ego's sake.
So it brings up 9/11. Where does that fall?
So like that is just humanity playing out what it needs to keep distracted the masses.
Okay. So
technically, everybody knew it was going to happen, when it was going to happen, how it was going to happen, decades before it even happened. And they told everybody that they were going to do it. Just nobody listened. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I mean, apparently it fell 33 years later after it was constructed. It seemed to be those two buildings, those twin towers, seemed to be designed for a specific ritual, right?
Yep.
I guess when the baneful, non-baneful, how do you, when you're doing that kind of stuff, how do you prevent yourself from going from one extreme to the other? Because it seems to me like they
repetitive resets. Now that doesn't necessarily mean cleansing, but repetitive resets. Give your time to rest. Give yourself time to care for yourself. Give yourself time to refocus and realign yourself to your manifestations.
So that's a personal level. Then we see the more of a macro level, and we see what's happened with the higher powers that the men of renown of our day. They use 9/11 as an opportunity to expand the empire, if you will.
Yep.
That we're under, and which is fascinating. If anybody ever looks at the map of them, maybe you agree with me on this, but the map of the old Roman Empire and the northern Africa all the way through the Middle East and the Levant all the way to, it looks like they're trying to recreate it. The glory days.
By the time the Romans came around, so mind you, shamanism, animism, things alike, and you've heard me talk about this before, we can easily date back to even the Denisovians, right? 70,000+ years ago.
Which we're going to go to.
By the time the Romans showed up, they were just trying to rebuild ancient civilizations that for periods they had lost, because in our evolution of psychology and growth, we kind of have like these peaks and then drops in Middle Ages and Dark Ages, then peaks, then so on and so forth throughout history, and not just our Homo sapiens sapien variant of our species. So
who are the better shamans, the Greeks or the Romans?
Depends on what your goal is.
Because apparently, well, I don't even know if yeah, it seems to me that, I just discovered that the Greeks, there's a possibility, I can't remember which one it was, which of the great intellectuals the Greeks that was
Pluto?
Yeah, he was pretty much suggesting
Pythagoras was a good one.
Yeah, the shamanism was in their culture altogether.
Yeah, with their work with Hermaeus Trismegistus, who was believed to be Thoth, the thrice born, the third Atlantean god king, or priest king, quotations, priest king, and the literally progenitor of all Magi and Magi.
I never had a chance to have this conversation. I really appreciate that, by the way.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
No, I know it means a lot to me. So.
I appreciate you for having me.
Oh, it means a lot. So we can go all over the place, but let's go back to the beginning here. The roots of shamanism. Some people claim that it comes out of Siberia. Is this true?
Oh man, this is a hard one. Shaman, I would give that, right? But I would say the job in which it's a descriptor of, we don't know.
That's what I do. That's a very honest.
Is that a fair enough answer?
Oh,
like I wish I could just tell you, but like we don't actually know.
The intelligentsia of our days, they seem to keep insisting that it came out of Siberia, but I'm just like, well, how do you know that? How do you honestly know that? Where's the evidence?
Well, especially because we have this kind of animistic, shamanistic practices and artwork, ritualistic burying, things alike, with the Denisovians 70,000 years ago, and they were utilizing languages we can't decipher. The problem is a lot of institutes teach history based off of what is decipherable and what's not, meaning anything past the Sumerian age, right? The cuneiform, which is one of the oldest languages we've kind of deciphered, only sits between the 3500 BCE to about the 58, and then we have variant forms of Hindu literature, but we have demonstration of ritualistic burial of specified herbal mixtures that obviously had hallucinogenic effects because we still use them today. Things like tens of thousands of years ago across multiple hominid species. So shaman, maybe the word, right? But the practice of it, we have no clue.
We don't, do we? But no. It's a safe, educated guess that it probably was going on for a very, very, very long time, thousands and thousands of years, right? I mean,
yeah.
Once you start
we're not the only animals to do it.
Yeah, then it seems to be the natural course of things, and it seems a more logical way to go. The more you study this stuff and experience, whether it's religion, politics, all the different branches of our society, it seems that shamanism seems to be the answer, the personal answer to helping. It seems to me that shamanism, in a nutshell, is a way. It's a discipline. It's a way to cope with life.
To a degree, yeah. To a degree, and we use by helping and manifesting the seed of life into others, we grow our own.
Interesting way to do that. So, so when do you think we first started to recognize shamanism?
So, not as a word, but as a practice, I would. My UPG puts it at around 128 BCE. 128,000 years. Yeah,
so that's a long time. That's a long time.
I think that is so. From what I've seen, that's the oldest maybe variant that we as a proto species started emanating it. So, like for example, right? I wouldn't consider an elephant a shaman, but we see these wild beings practice ritualistic ceremonies. We see them stick to a very seasonal travel routes, things that like, not just off of food, because sometimes they will go out of their way to do other things. But we see venerations of burials, mournings. We see social.
Can you hold that thought, bro? Just hold that thought.
Yeah, go for it.
Nikki, I think there's some of you probably know. Nikki, your mic's not connected, so you can't join live. It says here that you will need to connect your mic and cam before you can add to the stream. So you need to do that. So, well, you bring your folks are coming up. We got
welcome everybody. Welcome.
Astrid the Fox. That's got to be one of your people.
I forgot how loud I had my headphones.
Okay.
And my headphones are amazing. Have amazing sound quality, and it was very, very much loud, and it very much scared me once I came in.
Okay. So do you know the Magi here?
Yes, I believe we met on someone else's stream on TikTok.
Okay. Yes.
Nikki's stream actually, but for whatever reason their phone will not let them in. There we go. Hi, Nikki.
So the whole clan is showing up here. Cool. So
Yes.
Yeah, are you guys you practice some form of shamanism?
I'm a Norse pagan. I haven't really done much witchery stuff yet, even though I do wish to get into it though.
Okay. So if you guys have any questions for the master here, the beloved,
I appreciate it.
the light bearer here, please direct it toward him. And let's get back to where. Sorry for derailing you. Do you remember where we're at?
Yeah. So, actually, I kind of lost it a second. Just give me a minute.
So we were talking about the history of shamanism and where all this is.
Yeah. So I was actually using elephants as an example. So we see they're intelligent. They communicate. They practice ritual. They practice ceremony, so on and so forth. But they haven't really made it to the stage of utilizing specific herbs and plants for cognitive thought. They have general conversations, but they don't take the time to push it further, if you get what I'm saying. They haven't discovered philosophy, if you will. And when it comes to shamanism, right, the reason why I think it was around the 128K is because this is where we see the first major influx of us congregating around specific herbs and fungi that are responsible for this high jump in cognitive thought.
Interesting. A thought that comes to mind is like today we see a lot of this with ayahuasca and all that. There seems to be a reversal of what's going on and what used to be.
Right.
The shaman before was the one that would take the medicine, that would take the plants, consume the plants for the person that they were helping, right?
So kind of. So as a shaman, right, depending on what it is I'm helping with will depend on if I medicate beforehand, do a search of my own, then work you through one so I can get an interpretation from your purview as well. And then sometimes we would do a combination and then which we both go under for answers together, in which once we're in that state and synced, I can quite literally guide you in that realm instead of having you kind of take place in both. You can fully focus on the next one. There are points in which I wouldn't take any at all. It is simply to help you safely do your practice. So that way, say, for example, you start vomiting. My job is to roll you on your side, stroke your back, make sure you stay hydrated, help keep you away from things that you could do to self-harm, things like, especially with things like ayahuasca, which quite literally translates to the purge, right? And it's a very specific way of introducing this DMT, because normally you have to either smoke it or inject it. If you ingest it, the enzymes in your stomach will just completely eat it away. So they have to use the acacia roots to break down those enzymes in order to allow you to ingest the DMT, which gives you a slightly different and elongated trip as opposed to, say, for example, inhaling it like the Levitical priests did within, their holy holies. They'd light the DMT, via the acacia root. They would have frankincense, myrrh. They would ingest ergot, which was a fungi grew on their wheat, which produced just like LSD. So it's all these, hallucinogenics that, yes, the shaman does use on a regular basis because it helps just kick us right into overdrive, even though we can reach the same states through just like breathing techniques, meditation, exercise, things alike. The herbs help just, bam, we're there. We're just, we don't have to do all the extra shit. But then when we're helping with people, it depends on how we're helping them. So it may be something that I do have to specifically use one of these to put me in the right tunage or radio station, if you will, to be able to help the specific individual that I'm called to help. But as the shaman, yes, I'm also the one that is always, pushing the limits, testing to see where it takes me, utilizing it for my craft and my own mental state and growth. But it's a bit of both. And I hope I didn't rant too long on that one. And did explain.
No, keep ranting on. And I'm glad we recorded this. And I encourage anybody to listen to this again. I mean, it's the numbers for me. It don't matter, but it's the information that.
That's what I care about, the information.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, it seems to me that it requires an awful lot of trust on between the shaman and. I don't know, what would you call the person who's under the shaman?
Patient. Either it's the patient, right? Because here's the thing: if I'm to be someone's shaman, right, I personally can't be their spouse. I can't be their family member. I can't be someone who's just uber close with them, because there's certain bonds that are already connected that in the process of a lot of the shadow work we do as shamans, it then becomes a violation of trust. And so there has to be a trust as in a guide, as a teacher, as a leader, not so much as a leader or spouse, things of the like, right? So for example, though I am a shaman, I couldn't be Kara's shaman. I couldn't be Steph, M's, or anyone in my family who I have those bonds with. But say someone like you, Eddie, Dave, Sky, things alike, right? We're friends, but we don't have like super, we'll say, soul or spirit connections, right? So I can walk you through these in a non-biased way. Hence, not a violation of, we'll call, universal trust. There's no bias or need of ego or manipulation therein. It's that riding line between the baneful side of it and the unbaneful side.
Well, this brings up the question too. Then about this violation of the trust. It seems that the first thought that comes to mind is an awful lot of Catholic priests could learn from some shamans. You think? Well,
they did, and then they used it for control.
Well,
it's why they use specific incense. It's how they learned how to use their what are those giant pipes? Organ pipes. They use sound waves. They use specific incense. They use specific oils. They use specific incantations. They utilized all of it for control. Because the thing about shamans is we absolutely 100% are manipulating your perception. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And any true actual shaman isn't going to lie about it. When you come to us, we are there to help you perceive reality in a state that you cannot on your own. Nothing more, nothing less. So Catholic priests would be a great example of when shamanism goes bad.
Right, the violation of trust, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And Sasquatch Confession asked if you have a YouTube channel, and you do not, right? But you do.
I do have a couple, but because of the situation and us just moving to this 20 acres, I am still resetting up of everything. I have to refind and unpack a lot of my other devices, things alike. I can get some of them out to you. Most of them were just joke accounts because the 3 big accounts that I had 3 years ago got absolutely decimated after the FBI showed up to my house.
Yeah.
I can't even get my TikTok accounts above 5,000 anymore.
They won't let me get past 500. So I've been watching. It's funny. Anyways, but we'll work around it. So we'll get you back on there and in other platforms. There's other platforms.
I don't really care if people know who I am. What I care about is they learn this, so that way people stop taking advantage of them.
That's the issue, isn't it? And that's I think having a deeper. I mean, I've been observing and looking at different channels who talk about shamanism, and it's either one side or the other instead of that balanced approach. And that's what you're trying to do, and that's definitely.
I'm also trying to get rid of the cosplayers who are using it to hurt people.
Right, or then there's other ones. The light side of things, they're so light. It's just like there's the whole idea about saving the, it's all about saving the world, right? Type of thing instead of.
Yeah, we're Sol Invictus.
Yeah, instead of saving yourself first and fixing yourself, and so I don't know. There's just the new age. You brought up earlier, the new age infiltration shamanism I'm finding is a bit of a problem.
It is. It's the TikTok. I'm a Viking. That job title hasn't existed in like 500 years. Thank you very much. Right? It's and the real practitioners know that I'm not including them in this, but it's I'm a druid, I'm a Hafgathi, I'm a Magi, and all my stuff comes from fan fiction, and I've never grown a plant, I've never practiced, I don't know what frequencies go with what crystalline structures, such as 440 goes to silver, right? Lunar, celestial, frequency of emulation and syncretion, so on and so forth, right? But you ask these modern new age, practitioners, it's all about the love, hyper light, or super darkness. I'm a badass. We're gonna go to war.
Don't forget twin flame.
Has nothing to do with that. It true shamanism, true druidry, true Hafgathiism, practicing, everything else was the craft. Was the action. You can have the metaphysic all you want, but if you don't turn it into reality, all it is a story.
That's all about it. It'd be fascinating if next time we get into part 2, which I hope we do, is I get some of the people I know are into the science side of things and alchemy to join us in this conversation. So I think, and the physicists to join in this conversation. I think it'd be fascinating. Where should we? You're at this point as the instructor. Where do we go from here?
So, first, take a moment to just step away. Restrict your amount of artificial blue light. Listen to things that inspire you, that drive you, that make you want to move, manifest, create, destroy because it's toxic within your life. Once you get in the habit of that, start educating yourself.
So,
and don't be pompous about it.
So, okay, not that I think it matters which sex you are, but it's just, the things that motivate most do at times get in the way, don't it not? I mean, let's face it, right?
They can, but if you don't have the foundation of who that is, there's no you. So right. If you're asking what do we as the individual do about it, especially if you wish to become a shaman, right? Find yourself.
All right.
Discover who that is. Get accountability partners for different aspects of your life and apply them every single day. Once you get that as a habit, a ritual, if you will, then start educating yourself. Educate yourself on herbology and chemistry.
So when you say
Educate yourself on
accountability partner, what does that exactly mean?
So people that you trust to be unbiased in their addressment of your requestment of guidance. So if I need someone as accountability partner for my workout routine, so I'm going to pick someone in my life who is, one of their inspirations is physical health, right? Working out, things alike. And because I know they're friends who are not biased, their goal is to get me to work out, they're going to hold me accountable to those dates. And then I'll have another one who is my accountability partner for research. That, hey, Spaz, are you taking the time to read up on this article? Hey, did you take the time to go over, this dissertation that we were talking about? So on and so forth. So build a spider web of connections of other minds, right? Other future shamans, if you will, that work like the mind, right? Just like your neural pathways, your individual synapses, but you're separate. And build them for different categories and patterns that you wish to manifest. Once you get this, you'll grow and you'll educate yourself, and then you start applying it. Start meditating. Start reading. Start educating. Start communicating. Start teaching. Don't just take. Don't just apply. Give back. Give on. Grow. That is to be a shaman. Good, bad, light, dark, in, out, doesn't matter. But you have to move. If you're not moving, you're stagnant. You're void. You're of death. If you wish life, you must move. If you wish death, you must rest. Both are needed.
The William Seabrook is the one who coined the word zombie, just to let you guys know. And that's what you are, that's what you're saying, right? So so when it comes to meditation, and I imagine visualization is this, how does one personally hold them accountable at the times when when you can't lean on, I don't know, you have fellow practitioners, is that what we're saying?
Fair enough, right? So that is kind of hard, especially for many modern actual practitioners, because we're very solitary, right? We don't like dealing with the crowd. We don't like dealing with, quote unquote, the stupidity. We don't like dealing with the lies, with the deception, the sleight of hand, if you will, the two-tongued speaking. I could go on and on. But what you can do is send personal alarms of, hey, you know what? I'm going to go out, sit on a rock, and I am going to meditate in a way in which I do not have questions to answer, but I accept all things are already answered, and I'm here to rest and experience around me. Meaning you're just sitting there, you're breathing, you're relaxed, you're listening to the birds, feeling the wind or the sun on your face, so on and so forth. Then there's the type of meditation with purpose, right? In which you have a question or set of questions to be answered. You can meditate on thought through education, through watching a video, through reading, through experimenting physically. You can do it via meditational vibrational searching, which you can also utilize things like acacia for the DMT, THC, Delta 8 and 9 and even 11, MDMA, if you want a more love-based ecstasy, things the like. So meditation is zoning in to the frequency you wish to embody.
Sorry to sidetrack here a little bit. You keep bringing acacia and the acacia root, and I'm assuming is what you're talking about. But wasn't the ark made out of acacia wood?
Yep, and gold, and when hit with specific frequencies, it would cause a hum and a specific electromagnetic field. And when combined under, the eating of ergot, the burning of acacia tree, the same one that, Moses got high off of, you utilized certain song sequences that you can find in the Sefer Yetzirah, Book of Formation, which was utilized alongside the frankincense and the myrrh, and it was all very, very high-tech shit that was meant to put you in a very lucid state.
So
but if you overdid it, you died, which is why they tied a rope around your leg, because every once in a while the priest kind of overdid it.
got a little too high, is what you're saying, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I got too little stone. That's so funny.
We've all been there.
What was that?
I think we've all been there. Got a little bit too high.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yep.
But I find that fascinating. The acacia, made out of acacia wood. Anyways, sidetrack there. So this whole thing about the personal accountability, and this is, I think, a big part of this whole thing too, is the visualization and how to stay focused on things. One of the things I've been doing is like staring at trees and staring at clouds. Right. I discovered that I have a great difficulty staying focused at the tree. And I have a few trees that are my sacred trees. Like I have a maple tree and an oak tree that I go to and have my conversations with, because there really is nobody else in my immediate circle to talk to. So I discovered I gained a lot of wisdom, apparently, through
Staring at trees, clouds, and the stars. Yeah.
Well, the tree, you start to look at the lichen, you look at all the different insects and different animals. I mean, a tree can house frickin' a family of raccoons, several different types of squirrels, on it goes. And then you start to become really more aware of the creation, if you will. But
as without, so without. Yeah.
And all I can say is, welcome to Druidry.
Yeah. It's
I have a maple tree that I talk with. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a fantastic thing to do, isn't it? So, but what was I getting at here? The point is, what I was talking about is the chaos. One of the things about trees and the leaves, the branches, our ancestors, whether it was for the hunt or whatever it was, and I truly believe that our ancestors in most cultures encouraged one way or another for the individual to have their own sacred tree, right?
Yep.
And one of the things is like staring at this, edge of the woods or in the clouds and the chaos in the clouds, and being able to focus and get through the chaos. And it's not only between our ears, but also this from our eyes, and we have a hard time focusing on that chaos. And so, what are you have any suggestions for that?
So a lot of our ancients, right, and I'm glad you brought this up, actually believed that whenever a new tree was born, so was a new child. And when the child took its first breath, it was the signification of when the tree would first sprout. It's our ancestors understood that, for example, we see the symbols of like Yggdrasil, right? Every major culture has a sacred set of trees, and these trees follow very specific mathematical and geometrical representations, including what we call biological to analytical. The trees represent the formation of the womb, giver of life, right? The seed of life. We have the sacred geometrical polarity to it, right? Via the two-dimension. We have the sound frequencies that it combines, so on and so forth. It follows what we call the golden ratio, or the Fibonacci sequence.
Yeah,
right?
definitely see that.
So what I would recommend is, with it, take all of that and let that flow through you and your mind, while taking time with trees, with nature, taking the time when you first get up in the morning, walking out and barefoot, whether it's hot, cold, whatever, right onto the natural earth. Revitalize, reconnect, revibrate with the earth.
So it's like, say it's like staring into another individual's eyes for any length of time. It's very difficult for us. And I also notice this with trees. Now, that might sound bizarre, but it's some of the things I've been trying to do is to be able to discipline myself to stare at a tree at a certain point of a tree and stay there focused. A lot of people talk about maybe a candle, the flame of a candle, or just to focus on. But I'm finding it's incredibly difficult to focus on, of all things, as bizarre as this sounds, a tree. And so I think it's a real reflection of some people call it the monkey mind or whatever. Whatever it is, I think is at least individually for me is a weakness. I can't imagine I'm alone in that, and I don't know too many people who have actually tried it.
May I?
Yes, please.
So when you're talking about a tree, you have to think of what you're trying to do is significantly more challenging than focusing on a single flame of a single candle. You're talking about an entire entity that has so many moving pieces and so many layers of its energy, and you are trying to focus on all of that as a whole, right? So
Yeah.
picture the amount of leaves that are moving on that tree, and not just the leaves, but the branches that are moving, and not just the branches, but the grass under the tree.
And
All of that.
and then the static electricity that's generated from the leaves rubbing against you.
Exactly. So
And then the
when you're
vortex
saying you're
created
having
from that
trouble,
tree.
yeah,
And then the
and when you're
tree
saying you're having
being
trouble doing that, that's because you, instead of focusing on the whole of the tree, focus on one branch or focus on one leaf and try it. You know what I mean? Because what you're trying to do, like I said, is significantly harder. And when you get to that point where you can focus everything and see that entire tree as its whole energy form, as one whole energy being, and, not a full array of different leaves and different limbs and, all of that, then you have done so much more, and you have gotten so much more control over your mind than just focusing on one single flame of one single candle.
I like you already. Thank you. There's not too many people that ever talk that way. What's your take? And by the way, hi Eddie, thanks for joining us, brother. What do you say, Magi? What's your take on it?
So like 100%. And the only two things I would add is one, as an entity that is also an ecosystem, just like our own bodies. It's also dancing, if you will, but it's dancing in a way and at a pace and at a flow through time space that unless you're able to detach from the kind of constant need to either hyper focus or focus on 1,000 things at once, it's kind of off-putting. So your brain simply won't allow you to focus on it. So it takes practice. And a good way to practice this, which would be the second thing, is either do the candle thing where you have multiple candles and you start with one, then you light multiple, and you do this while sitting in front of the tree, right? And you practice switching focus from both the one to multiple candles up to the tree, and then refocusing back in. Or you can do the metronome way, where you take 3 or 4 metronomes, right? You set them at different octaves, and after waiting about 30 seconds, you then simply look up at the tree, and your body and the metronomes will synchronize to their own
Okay, at this point, the character, the avatar of Lan, L-A, or Lane it is, Lane, the truck, I misread it. I thought it was Luna. Thought it might have been Eddie, our friend, but it wasn't. And unfortunately, he somehow hacked us. If it was him or another character that showed up too that I didn't know, and started masturbating, and somehow was able to take over other people's avatars as well while he's doing it. So it's unfortunate that there's so many trolls out there that don't want us to talk about this stuff. It's really quite a shame, but my apologies to the Magi, the teacher, and hopefully we'll have another class and go from there. And I apologize to everyone else. And next time when we do it, if I don't know you, or if Magi or his gal Kara doesn't know you, you're not coming up. You're just not allowed to come up. can't trust others. So it's the way it is. It's unfortunate. So it's the Lord of O.R.D, the 14 digital shaman, and apparently people do not want us to talk about the truth. Thanks for listening.